Dear viewers, dear listeners, we greet you very warmly to the reading of today from the great work of Revelation. This is my word, Alpha and Omega, the gospel of Jesus, the Christ revelation which true Christians the world over have come to know. Jesus of Nazareth already taught 2,000 years ago the love for God and neighbor, and many people know his golden rule of life. Do to others as you would have others do to you. Or spoken differently, what you do not want others to do to you, do not do to another. What the fewest people know is that the golden rule of life, the commandment of love for God and neighbor, also includes the animals, the plants, all of creation. The institutional churches concealed the fact that Jesus of Nazareth had taught that we go toward the animals and all the creatures of God with love and respect. Today in our time, the Spirit of the Christ of God teaches through Gabriele, the prophetess and emissary of God, the whole truth about his life on earth and about his divine teachings, particularly in view of the animals and of nature. In the great work of Revelation, this is my word, Alpha and Omega. Christ himself explains, corrects, and deepens the word, building on an extra-biblical gospel. From it, we will now read in chapter 21 with the title, Jesus Reproves Cruelty to a Horse.
Im Evangelium Jesu,
in the Gospel of Jesus, the following occurrence is described. And it came to pass that the Lord departed from the city and went into the mountains with his disciples, and they came to a mountain with very steep paths. There they met a man with a beast of burden. But the horse had collapsed, for it was overladen. The man struck it till the blood flowed. And Jesus went to him, saying, You son of cruelty, why do you strike your animal? Do you not see that it is much too weak for its burden? And do you not know that it suffers? But the man retorted, What have you to do therewith? I may strike my animal as much as it pleases me, for it belongs to me, and I bought it with a goodly sum of money. Ask those who are with you, for they are from my neighborhood, and know thereof. And some of the disciples answered, saying, Yes, Lord, it is as he said. We were there when he bought the horse. And the Lord rejoined, Do you not see then how it is bleeding? And do you not hear how it wails and laments? But they answered, saying, No, Lord, we do not hear that it wails or laments.
Christ explains, corrects, and deepens the word. Even when a person has acquired an animal, nevertheless it is not his property. Just as the spiritual body, the soul in the human being is part of the eternal being, because the eternal has created the spiritual body, and the spirit being lives through the eternal, in the eternal being, so was the animal created by the eternal Creator Spirit, and is part of the life which is and lasts eternally, God. The whole of infinity is serving love, serving life. Man, too, is called by me, Christ, to serve his neighbor in a selfless way. This also includes his second neighbor. For the animal, too, is endowed with the gifts of selfless serving and serves gladly and readily the person who loves it. When a person does not selflessly love his neighbor, that is, his fellow man, he will not serve him selflessly either. He then transmits his selfishness also to the worlds of animals, plants, and minerals. An animal cannot speak, It suffers and endures silently and can hardly express its pain and grief. Only the one who selflessly loves people, animals, plants, and stones perceives the pain and agony endured by the animal. The egocentric person, the domineering person, expects his fellow man to serve him. He also demands that an animal serve him beyond its capacity and strength. He gives orders and does not serve. For this reason, he inflicts unspeakable torment on people and animals. If a person makes his fellow men dependent on him, as if they were slaves, he will also subjugate the animals. The one who no longer listens to his conscience becomes hard-hearted toward man and animal. He cares solely for his own interests, his self-serving interests. He is full of self-importance, and in this forgets that his neighbor and his second neighbor, the animal, suffer under his egocentric dominance. Nor does he sense anymore what his neighbor and the animal need. When a person's senses have become brutal, the whole person is poor in feeling. However, he reacts all the more sensitively when his own ego is addressed and his actions are questioned.
Christ continues to reveal, recognize that the one who is solely with this world also looks at just the small, limited world of his ego. He thereby becomes numb to the law of life, thus becoming a spiritually dead person. Spiritually dead people are deaf and dumb to the true life. They will be born again into matter, as long as this is still possible according to the laws of incarnation, so that in the course of their changing fate, they will learn and experience that their neighbor, who stands beside them, as well as the animal, feel and suffer, particularly since all of them receive their life from God. Happy are those who recognize that their further existence can mean torment or freedom, because man reaps what he sows. The time has drawn close when the heavily burdened souls will no longer be able to enter the temporal, because the light will then dwell on earth. The shadows of the human ego will then no longer be able to rule the world, because the will of God is lived and becomes visible. The one who has consecrated his life to God has become selfless. His life is then one selfless service to his neighbor. The person in the Spirit of the Lord no longer speaks of thine and mine. He lives in the fullness of God from eternity to eternity, in what God has bequeathed to him, all the being, the eternity. Therefore, the one who truly lives beholds what the spiritually dead do not see, and hears what the spiritually dead cannot hear. It is the life that flows from human being, animal, plant, and stone, from all of infinity. For the one who lives in me is one with all people, beings, animals, plants, stones, and with all of infinity. He understands the language of love.
We continue reading in the text of the Gospel of Jesus. And the Lord became sad and said, "Woe to you, because of the dullness of your heart. You do not hear how it laments and cries to its heavenly Creator for pity, but thrice woe to the one against whom it cries and wails in its torment." Christ explains, corrects, and deepens the word. He speaks. Woe to those who sin against man, animal, plant, stone, and against everything God has given to them for a life in Him. Many people have become numbed in their very nature. Their human ego strives solely for its own benefit. In so doing, the selfish person deals unfairly with his fellow man and exploits the nature kingdoms as well. The human being of this time has laid hands on the great earth man, the earth, and is still doing so today. He pollutes the earth, violates the life on it, and interferes in the atmosphere through his use of nuclear power, as well as of chemicals and other things. Thus, he violates the earth and all that lives on it, and destroys its atmospheric mantle, which provides it and all earthly life with protection. Especially at this turn of time, the turning point from the old sinful time to the era of light, animal and plant species are calling out with the forces of their sensations, with the language of their consciousness, to their Creator for help and rescue. Animals and plants are suffering unimaginably from the excesses of the human ego, of human selfishness. The oppressed life calls for mercy and deliverance. God, my Father, the Creator of all life forms, has heard the oppressed creatures. Many animal species are dying out because of man's unlawful conduct. Their spiritual forces either return to the soul of the earth or go into the pure spheres of the eternal being. For many, this is a deliverance. Many of them, however, will come back when the light dwells on the earth, because people will then live in unity with God.
Christ gives further explanations and deepens the word. Know that every misdeed and every ill treatment that has not been atoned for, whether toward humans, animals, plants, or even stones, that is, toward the whole earth and the atmosphere, falls back upon the originator. Recognize that many animals are given to man so that they may serve him. Many are given to maintain the ecological balance. However, a right kind of serving, a reciprocal serving, can exist only when man has unfolded the filiation love that comes from the Father-Mother God, and when he has unfolded the Creator love, which is effective in the animal, in plants, and stones. Then he can also communicate with all being. Wherever there is pure communication, the eternal cosmic energy also flows. But where the forces of love are bound, there hard-heartedness, selfishness, and slavery is found. There neither understanding nor tolerance is found. There only taking is found, and no flowing that comes from giving and receiving. It is the law. What man does unto the least of my brothers, unto his fellow man, that he has done unto me, the Christ. And in the final analysis, also unto himself. For what man sows, he will reap. The harvest always corresponds to the seed. When a person violates the eternal law of selfless love, he turns away from the eternal energies that he needs for a healthy life, for the well-being of his soul and of his body as well. Therefore, the one who turns to the world and its shadows turns away from me, the light. And the one who turns away from me steps into the shadows of the human ego. The one who stands in these shadows suffers and wastes away and becomes the slave of his own ego, and in turn makes of his neighbor a slave. Recognize that only the person allows himself to become the slave of the domineering man, who himself stands in the shadows and is thereby already enslaved. He then sells himself to the domineering man for a few pieces of silver, thereby betraying his true Lord. This happens towards humans, animals, plants, the earth, and the atmosphere.
In the Gospel of Jesus is described what further occurred. And he, Jesus, went forward and touched the horse, and the animal stood up, and its wounds were healed. But he said to the man, "Go on your way now, and henceforth strike it no more, if you too hope to find mercy." And seeing the people come to him, Jesus said to his disciples, "Because of the sick, I am sick. Because of the hungry, I go hungry. Because of the thirsty, I suffer thirst." To this, Christ explains, corrects, and deepens the word in the following. "Because of the sick, I am sick," means that the one who selflessly loves is open for his neighbor and can also feel and empathize in his heart with the anguish, the suffering, and the sickness of his fellow man. People who are there selflessly for their neighbor receive from me the strength to give the sick person comfort and help. People in my spirit serve their neighbor selflessly, if he wants it. Recognize that every person has his free will, and no one should force himself upon his neighbor. For this reason, a person should give help only when it is wanted. The spirit of love flows through selflessly serving people to many of his human children, bestowing help upon them. God helps his human children in every situation, also through people whose heart beats selflessly for God and for their fellow man. The one who loves selflessly also serves selflessly. Through this, the good comes into this world, God. The one who recognizes his own causes is also aware of the chains of causes that take their course in this world, and whose effects have led and lead to manifold diseases, afflictions, and torment. The one who has insight into the law of sowing and reaping also knows the way out of the turmoil and entanglement of the human ego. And the one who takes the path out of suffering, torment, sickness, and lingering infirmity will create less and less causes. Thus, the bad seed in the soil of life decreases. The good seed, the life in me, the Christ, then sprouts in him.
Christ continues to explain, correct, and deepen the word. Because of the hungry, I go hungry. Because of the thirsty, I suffer thirst, means that as Jesus of Nazareth, I sense, and as Christ, I know why many of my human children lack nourishment and why they thirst. As Jesus, I saw the deficiencies, and as Christ, I know them. The deficiencies are the lack of light in the soul. The awakened soul hungers and thirsts for me, the Christ. A soul that is awakened in me will not rest until the person recognizes why it hungers and thirsts. If the person has recognized the need of the soul, and with my power clears up what he has recognized, what has led to the lack of light in the soul, then the soul breathes a sigh of relief, and the person becomes healthy. Recognize that the soul lives solely by the light of God. If the soul has too little of this light, the body becomes sick, or the person has to hunger and thirst, depending on the kind of seed he has sown in the soil, in his soul. Every thirsty person yearns for the wellspring, for water. When the wellspring of inner life flows but sparsely in the person, because he has turned away from the source, the wellspring, then soul and person suffer. The one who lives in God senses the suffering of his neighbor, and will not rest until all souls and people have reached the wellspring of life, and the souls have united with the origin of the wellspring, in order to be again the wellspring itself. Until all men and souls live in this spiritual consciousness, I will be with the people and souls as their Redeemer and feel with them their illness, their hunger, and their thirst. And I will still their hunger and quench their thirst, until all humanness has been dissolved, and the soul is again the wellspring from God Himself, the Spirit being of the heavens, the image of God.
We continue reading in the Gospel of Jesus. Jesus of Nazareth continues to teach the people. And he also said, I have come to put an end to the sacrifices and feasts of blood. If you do not cease to offer and consume the flesh and blood of animals, the wrath of God will not cease to come upon you, just as it came upon your ancestors in the wilderness, who indulged in the consumption of flesh, and were filled with rottenness and consumed by pestilence. Christ explains, corrects, and deepens the word. He speaks the following. I have come to put an end to the sacrifices and feasts of blood, means that I have come to teach you the gospel, the law of love, and to live it as an example for you, so that you may recognize that only the person who keeps the laws of God is rich in spiritual power in his inner being. People who have the inner values will not lack in anything. For the one who is rich in his heart is with his neighbor, not against him, thus being for God the life, which is the fullness. People who have inner values are also with the world of animals and plants, and are not against the creation of God. The one who is against his neighbor will fight against him and kill him. And whoever is against his neighbor will not be for other forms of life, neither for the life of animals, nor of plants or stones. The one who is against the life in me, the Christ, hungers and thirsts for success, wealth, power, and prestige. For his feasts and for the lusts of his palate he kills animals and consumes their flesh. Thus he demonstrates that he is far from God. Animal sacrifices, too, are an abomination before God, the Eternal. He does not want animals to be sacrificed or consecrated to him. God has given the life to all forms of being, and thus to animals as well. Why should they then be sacrificed to him, since he himself, the life, dwells in them?
Christ further reveals, however, if man were to sacrifice his human ego, his passions and cravings to me, the Christ, and were to strive for and lead a life that is pleasing to God, that is, devoted to Him, this would contribute to the unity of all life forms. God is the Spirit of love and freedom. For this reason, every human being should voluntarily sacrifice his ego. Only then will he become meek and humble of heart, and will find his way to the great unity, God. This development of man towards Him is what God loves in His children.
Und wer sich dem
And the one who devotes himself to the eternal Father, Mother God, by transforming his humanness into the divine, will not slaughter animals or consume their flesh,
mutwillig töten.
nor will he deliberately kill any animal. Such people will also treat the plant world with selfless love, as this too is a gift of creation from God to his human children. The plants and the fruits of the field and forest willingly give themselves to man and want to serve him as nourishment and as a remedy for his sick body. The wrath of God comes from the heathen world of conceptions, which was still very much alive in the Old Covenant. It was believed that the gods would take revenge on people. It would be good if the sinful person were to recognize that it is he himself who has created the so-called wrath of God. The wrathful God is the human ego, which takes revenge for what it itself has caused, for man will reap what he sows. The words, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, also were and still are wrongly interpreted. Man should not take revenge on his neighbor and give tit for tat. He is called upon to forgive his neighbor, to ask him for forgiveness, and to no longer do the same or similar thing. The one who does not follow this commandment subjects himself to the law of expiation. It reads, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth. Then he will reap, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, what he has sown. Recognize that sooner or later, the wrathful, dominating ego, the ego god of man, will collapse. At the latest, when the causes that man has sown flow out of his soul. Furthermore, recognize that the suffering of animals and the consumed flesh of the animals that have been deliberately killed gnaw, in turn, at the flesh of the person. The consequences are diseases and pestilence. They are the effects of these and similar causes.
Dear fellow people, with this we come to the end of our reading for today. From the great work of Revelation, this is my word, Alpha and Omega, the gospel of Jesus, the Christ revelation which true Christians the world over have come to know. We wish for all of us that ever more people learn to love the life and to respect nature and the animals. All the best to you. Goodbye, and greetings in God.